it's been quite a week for Madam Web and Sony at the cinema.
Yes, dozens of people have seen it.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one because I think we were talking about this backstage. It's like the storm around this movie weirdly just seems to have grown and grown, and the film at the center of it is just like the eye of a tornado. It's like this weird, calm blob of nothingness. Like, it's just a crap movie that nobody really is interested in. But like the storm of controversy that seems to have grown around it just seems to be getting worse and worse. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe there's just not much going on right now in cinema, so people are just talking about this. But it's one of those films that has done exactly what we predicted. You know, it's a movie. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
It's a movie.
It's done nothing.
It's done nothing. Yeah, it's a film about a character that nobody has ever heard of, in a genre that people increasingly don't care about, released at a time of year that nobody goes to the cinema anyway. And so, it seems like everything was stacked against it, and it's a garbage movie to boot. So, funnily enough, it's flopped. Yeah, I mean, disastrously.
Go ahead.
There hasn't been a Brie Larson telling us to go f ourselves. Like, there's not.
That's true. Well, Dakota Johnson just seems to be like, yeah, this movie's fucking shit.
Yeah, she's like, literally, she's the anti-Brie Larson. She's like literally telling everybody right.
You'd think you'd like the film more because you're going, at least the actresses are fine. But like, everyone,
they cover them up and they don't even put them in suits.
They somehow did the impossible and they made Sydney Sweeney look boring and unattractive. Like, why would you do that? What do you gain by doing that?
The male gaze, drinker. The male gaze.
I mean, this is what happens. I hate to be the guy to say it, right? But this is what happens when you put women in charge of movies like this. It's like, I mean, give the audience what they want, surely.
There's other problems. I mean, they had like one of the worst marketing campaigns of all time I think I've ever seen. The bait and switch nature of the film has given it a negative reputation. Like, oh, it's not even what you've seen in the trailers are cut from essentially an older film that got
very
reshot.
Deceiving.
It's very deceiving. And there's literally, it's got to be at least 5 or 6 scenes in the trailer that are not even in the movie. So that right there.
Whatever you see of the 3 girls in the Spider-Girl costumes is in the trailer. That's literally all you get in the movie. Like you say, that is the ultimate bait and switch. Yeah, it's stuff that doesn't even happen in the context of the film. It's just a flash forward, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like a possible future.
Yeah, you see it. I watched the movie. I think it was 2 hours ago. I legitimately do not remember anything about the film except for how bad Dakota Johnson's acting was in one particular scene. But even then, just the costumes looked horrible. Even just having them there for 30 seconds, and her costume at the end when you see her in the proper Madame Web attire, I guess that's what you can call it. It looks like a dollar store costume. It's so bad.
Yeah.
All of them do. Every this is whoever was in charge of the costume department needs to seek employment elsewhere, because this was some of the worst costuming I've ever seen.
It's some of the worst film stuff that I've
ever
seen.
I'm just talking about that specifically from the
yeah. It's like
the dialogue, one part of many.
The weird ADR, the terrible cinematography, the
snap zooms, digital snap zooms, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah. The terrible acting, like nobody gave a fuck in this movie.
I was getting like vertigo from all the snap zooms and the weird effects that they put around whenever stuff was happening. It triggered something.
Maybe they were trying to emulate early 2000s Michael Bay, but even then,
they literally ripped the scene. They literally ripped a scene right out of Spider-Man 2, I believe, and slapped it right on. Like they just didn't even change it. So yes, they weren't just trying to emulate the early 2000s. They were literally ripping from the early 2000s.
Yeah, well, they emulated Catwoman pretty well. They gave us, more shit.
That is very true. Yeah, it's yeah, man. Like I say, it's just one of those movies that it seemed like we all predicted it was flop. It did. And that kind of should have been the end of it, but it just feels like people are really going in on this movie. And like you say, it might be the bait and switch nature of it. It might be just the fact that there's not much else out right now. It might be that it's one of your first major flops of the year. I don't know. Like there just seems to be something about it that just seems to have grown and grown. Maybe it's the fact that even the actresses that are in it are kind of taken part in the taking of the piss of this movie. I don't know,
think,
man.
I think
Everyone's
that's
killing
probably it. That's probably it. That like normally at least the actors will fight back, and they're not even bothering. Either they're not saying anything or they're actively joining in on the bashing.
But the mad thing is, Sydney Sweden, who does nothing in the entire film, is like the most famous person out of it because of how she looked on the premiere.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
That's literally it. It just
that
she had
is
a big
pretty much
tits
it.
out.
Yeah.
That's literally, and everyone's going, "Oh, Sydney Sweden! Like, why is she so popular all of a sudden?"
Yeah.
There's two reasons why.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder.
I think it's almost like she knew, like, okay, the movie's going to be absolute garbage. I've got to do something to salvage something good out of this. What can I
'Cause
do? Okay, I'm basically going to show up naked to the premiere and just hope for the best.
The other two actresses, nobody's talking about but her.
Yeah.
She's walking away looking better somehow just by showing up in a sexy
That's
outfit.
true.
Well, she showed
Yeah,
up and she
she's-
literally said nothing. She was just like, "I'm going to show up, shut up, and look good."
But-
So
I'm
She
just going to show up. I'm
undermined-
Sydney Sweeney.
She undermined Dakota because she came in a dress that looked naked, and then unfortunately she came in as well. And then nobody looked at her.
Dakota
Yeah.
Johnson looked completely naked at the premiere. I didn't. I even zoomed in. I was like, "What is going
Yeah.
on? What
Of course
is
you
Some
zoomed
this?"
in.
impressive, yeah,
Oh,
some
I
impressive
see.
like flesh-colored underwear or something going on. But it's weird
But then
because it's
Sydney
like
just
it's one of
stole
those
the thunder.
it's one of those examples where you put like Dakota Johnson's a solid 9, like, but you put a 9 next to a 10 and suddenly it looks like a 6. It's just
Yeah,
oh,
like with a mum.
really unfortunate.
But it's mad though. It's like they go, "Oh, male gaze, we'll take it out the movie," but then it's all on the premiere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All just
essentially.
moved there.
like I say, I think they all went into survival mode and just thought, what can we do to try and salvage some kind of positive press from this? Yeah, we'll just,
yeah. Knowing Sony, they'll probably re-release it in a few months because of the memes like Morbius. See if they can crack down a few more.
I know
millions
that's
on
the
that.
sad thing. We can't even meme the studio now because they've gotten wise to that, and it is
Yeah,
a shame.
It's like your dad's
Honestly-
embracing it, and you just go, "Oh, I don't want to do it now." He's doing it. It's not cool.
Yeah,
anymore.
it's not cool anymore.
honestly, I really think that somebody in their whatever department should have been like, "Hey, why don't you actually put the line 'It's Webbing time' in there? That might might help."
Yeah,
And it might as well just go full in on the meme, and they didn't even do that. So
they could have, yeah, because I assume at some point they must have realized like this is garbage what we're producing. They should have just embraced the stupidity of it and just made it almost like a parody, and just had fun with it. At least then you could have got something positive out of it. As it stands, like wow. And I've got to applaud Sony because I said this on the previous open bar. I think you've got the two major comic book or superhero universes. You've got the MCU, which was massive and it was a big juggernaut, and now it's just kind of like this car that's running on empty and just kind of coasting on its momentum. You've got the DCEU or the DCU, whatever the hell they're calling it now, which has just been a constant series of false starts and failures, but it's still big because it's got characters like Batman and Superman and stuff with it. So it's got that. Then you've got this tiny little universe that Sony have tried to birth using whatever residual rights that they have. They've got Spider-Man. They've got some of the subsidiary characters. They've got Venom. And they're trying to make like this crappy little shared universe out of that, particularly now at a time when no one even cares about these movies anymore. No one cares about superhero films anymore. They're releasing Venom 3. They're releasing Madam Web. They're releasing
Craven the Hunter. soon, yeah.
All
Like,
the-
wondering
it's like
I
this
wonder
dude
what
who shows up
characters-
3 hours late to the party and just he's ready to go, and everyone else is heading home.
I'm wondering what characters they actually have like the rights to, because there's so much crossover with villains and stuff.
I think it's all the
within-
Spider-Man. Villains,
Yeah, but
probably.
what counts the Spider-Man villain? Like Spider-Man and Kingpin are intrinsically connected, and he's been part of that for a long time. And then Kingpin's over in the MCU, so
Yeah,
it's
the
like,
Kingpin and Daredevil. So I think it's
but it's like, yeah,
maybe
I would
Netflix
love to see the way that contract is written, because it's got to be really strange who they have rights to if these are the ones they're landing on, because there's
Yeah.
definitely other villains that are way more well known that they could be using.
No, you
they've
wouldn't like to
got-
see the contract, because if you saw the contract, it would go, Kingpin must be cooked by a lovely, intelligent woman who's amazing. You just see
That's
that
all-
in everything.
That's only in Disney though. That's the thing. Like Sony, I'm sure would take a different approach, but
Boring and dark and
My favorite thing about this is that they didn't even know where they wanted to put it in their own continuity. They've like Sony isn't, like Disney is bigger than Sony, obviously, but like Sony's no slouch when it comes to being a production company. They've been around for a long time. They're huge, and their department couldn't even figure out like, well, like what do the ages match up? Where should we put this? I've never seen that before. I've never seen a film not be able to be placed in a continuity of a shared universe.
I'll tell you why, right? And it's the director of the movie has a real fondness for the early 2000s, and I only know this because when I was on Mahler's EFAP stream last night and we were all getting Stuckmanized to the brink of our lives, he brought up a quote from the director and saying, we said it in 2003 because that's when I was young and I've got loads of fond memories of that time, and I thought it would be really cool and nostalgic to set a movie in that time period. And that was pretty much the extent of their thinking on that one. They just, she wanted to set it in that time.
There's nothing wrong with that thought process, but you also then need to take into account other factors if you're trying to fold it in with the Amazing Spider-Man or, whichever one you're trying to do it with. You have to at least account for that. And they didn't even bother until they got to reshoots. So,
I mean, I'll be totally honest. Like, I hate what Spider-Man has become because Spider-Man is no longer a character. Spider-Man is like a shared universe unto himself. He's like a mini MCU or something. There's a million different variations of him. You've got the Amazing Spider-Man series. You've got the MCU Spider-Man with Tom Holland. You've got the animated ones across the Spider-Verse and stuff. All these different variations. Then you've got like Madam Web trying to do like a female version of Spider-Man. It never fucking ends.
Yeah, there's even the new live action Spider-Man Noir that they're trying to rope Nicolas Cage to get into, which is even more Spider-Man.
Like I say, he's no longer a character with his own identity. He's just a brand. Like Spider-Man is just a brand that you can import any sort of character into.
That's kind of that's like variation. That's basically a fallout from years ago when they had to fold everything in to get Miles Morales over into the main continuity of the 616 universe. They essentially had to explain that in the comics that there's a bunch of different Spider-Men and we're going to bring this one over. And then it's just permeated everything now. It's permeated the cartoons, it's permeated the movies, it's permeated everything that you can imagine with Spider-Man. And it's weird because technically all of the characters are like that. There's infinite versions of every character because they can just make a new universe whenever.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
But they specifically go at it with Spider-Man for some reason.
They do, yeah, because they don't just give variations. They're all unique characters, or at least they try to make them into that. So like they've got the coolness factor of being the web-slinging like bodysuit character, who's got all the elements of Peter Parker, but they just want to do all these infinite variations of him because they can all be marketed separately and they can all make money separately with minimum creativity involved. So I mean, I see it from the studio point of view, but god damn, as a viewer, it's depressing to see